Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1060, 1060, March the 2nd, 2020, Monday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, yesterday, Sunday's video, is just, about once a month it seems like I have a failed upload. And it's not an issue with Google or YouTube, it's an issue with my service provider, my internet service provider. I don't know, I think they do like a backup maybe once a month backup, and when they do, it causes your internet to go out for a while. Usually it's half an hour, sometimes an hour, whatever. But if you're uploading a video and you lose connection, the video just stops and you have to go back and reload the video. So that's what happened, and so I had to go out and do a few things. Sunday morning I got back around noon, and the video was stuck. So I had to completely start over to re-upload the video. So that's why the video was late getting uploaded on Sunday. And I think for that reason, a lot of people, I think, gave up on the video upload. So we didn't have very many people chime in for Dumbass of the Week. But also, because I forgot to mention, which I try to always remember to mention that on the Sunday video. Because that is when I try to stay on that schedule of doing the Dumbass of the Week on the Sunday video. So anyway, just one of them days, the video is late uploaded and I forgot to mention to get your vote in for Dumbass of the Week. But some people did get it in there, so we'll still cover Dumbass of the Week. Not as many votes as normal, but we'll cover it. And that's what happened with the video upload. It just seems like it's like a once a month thing, and I don't know what you can do about it. Anyway, let's go ahead and get on with the news of the day. So I was watching the Dan Bongino show, and he was set up there at CPAC, and he was just interviewing various people there at CPAC, and he had Svetlana Lakova. Of course, many of you know Svetlana Lakova. She is the British historian researcher who Stefan Halper claimed was having an affair with Michael Flynn to stir up the soup there to get Michael Flynn in trouble, or at least ways to create problems for Michael Flynn. And so of course she sued Stefan Halper and for slander or libel, I guess you'd say. And I understand the ruling in that case has already come down, and that they have ruled against Svetlana Lakova. And the last I heard, she's going to appeal. But I want to talk about some things, not so much what she talked about Bongino, because most of what they covered is information we all have heard before. But she brought up some things, and they're not new things, but they're things that, when you put them into a different context, they become interesting again. So, they're talking about Halper, of course, and everything that went on with him, and her experience with him, and talking about Steele, and to some degree Chalupa and Misfit. And, for the longest time, I've been thinking that it's hard for me to believe that as involved as Halper was in all of this, and he was spending a lot of his time doing a lot of the dirty business he was doing over in London, at the same time we have Christopher Steele, and he's in London. And for the longest time, I've been wondering, I'm assuming probably Halper and Steele crossed paths somewhere along the way, probably know each other, may have been working together to some degree. But there's never really been any clear connection of that, but it's just hard to believe that they weren't. And of course, then when you figure in Chalupa into this, because remember, there are things that are in the dossier that are Ukraine related. And that stuff was being developed from Chalupa and these Ukrainian officials at the Ukrainian embassy in Washington, D.C. But somehow this Ukrainian stuff finds its way into the dossier. Now, actually, it wasn't just Steele's dossier, but as we know from the Lee Smith book, we had these proto-dossiers. And this Ukrainian Manafort stuff was in the proto-dossiers. Now, keep in mind, Steele's first report doesn't really come out until late summer of 2016. But we know that as early as March of 2016, Chalupa was briefing the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign on the Manafort issues in Ukraine, and she's saying, well, if Manafort's involved, that drags Trump into it. We got to tie Trump to Manafort. So Chalupa is getting this information. She's passing it to the DNC and to the Hillary Clinton campaign in March of 2016. And we're told that Steele didn't even come on board until midsummer of 2016. So how did the Ukrainian information that Chalupa is digging up end up in the proto-dossiers and then later into the Steele dossier? Now keep in mind, there is a direct link, or an indirect link, I guess you could say, between Chalupa and Christopher Steele. And that link would be Michael Isikoff. We know that at some point, Chalupa enlists the help of Isikoff. And she begins passing information to Isikoff. Then he decides, yeah, I'm really interested in this. And so she actually then enlists his help even more. And she actually takes him over to Ukraine with her. And now she introduces him to all these Ukrainian people. Then he comes back. And then when they drop this, and I think it was like, I guess it was late spring, early summer. At that point is when they drop this Black Ledger, fake Black Ledger story. And that, of course, comes out of Ukraine through Chalupa and lands right into the lap of Michael Isikoff. Now, by this time, Isikoff, by the mid to latter part of the summer, really no longer needed Chalupa, per se, to work as a go-between, because she had introduced him to the various people, so now he had his own contacts. Okay, so here we have Isikoff. But at the same time, right about mid to late summer of 2016, we have Christopher Steele meeting with Isikoff. So here is a common denominator between Chalupa and Steele. It's Michael Isikoff. And so I think that we're going to find, when we get to the bottom of this, or hopefully Mr. Durham will find and shine some light on this, is that this effort by the Right Reverend Clinton and the DNC, this whole dossier, this whole thing. Remember, Chalupa is telling Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC about Manafort, Ukraine, Trump, connections to Russia, Manafort's working for Poroshenko. So this information is, this Trump-Russia sort of narrative is already being developed in March of 2016. Then along comes Steele and Confusion GPS. And they pick up the proto-dossiers. And then they run with that. So you can see clearly by the time that Fusion GPS and Steele were hired, the Russian narrative was already there. The narrative of Manafort is working with, it's actually Yanukovych, not Poroshenko, Yanukovych. Manafort is connected to Yanukovych. He's a puppet of the Russians. This is the narrative, even though that's not really true, but that's the narrative. All this is being fed to the Clinton campaign in March of 2016. Then by midsummer, June, July, you've got the proto-dossiers. Then along comes Steele with his dossier, repeating a lot of the stuff that's in the proto-dossier. And the stuff in the proto-dossier included stuff from Ukraine. So it's pretty clear that the Right Reverend Clinton and her people had this Russian narrative. And by the time they hire Steele and Confusion GPS, they've already got the Russian narrative. It wasn't Steele and Confusion GPS that discover this Russian narrative or begin to push the Russian narrative. By the time that they were brought in, the Clinton campaign already had the Russian narrative. They just needed to take it and blow it up, in a sense, and expand it, and then find a way not only just to get it into the hands of media people, but also to pipeline it into the FBI, the State Department, everywhere else, to try to instigate an investigation. So as Durham is looking into the origins of all of this, this is likely what he's going to find. So I think that whether or not there was any personal contact between Christopher Steele and Chalupa, I'm not sure if they had personal contact. But if Steele is getting this Ukraine stuff from Izakov, and Izakov was probably one of the people who was part of putting this out for the proto-dossiers, then it was probably more than likely Izakov feeding Steele on this Ukrainian stuff. And then when Nellie Orr comes in to work for Fusion GPS, and this is in the fall of 2015, she's also looking at the Ukraine stuff. So you can see that this whole cabal of people all are working for the rotten Reverend Clinton. I mean, these are Hillary Clinton's people. Chalupa, Steele, Confusion GPS, Michael Izakov. They're all on the Hillary Clinton DNC payroll, which were one and the same in 2016. And then you come up with Halper. Now, Halper, of course, one of his main contacts was this Russian Troubnikov. He's one of the sources. And then we find out that Christopher Steele goes to the State Department and tells this one woman at the State Department who she's asked about who his sources are, and he drops Troubnikov. So now we have another situation where we have Steele and Halper both associated with Troubnikov. Steele outwardly admitting that that's a source. Now, in Halper's case, Troubnikov is more of a friend. Halper invites him to the London Center to participate in the activities and things that they do there, to give speeches or whatever. So here we have another common denominator. This common denominator, unlike the other common denominator, is between Steele and Chalupa, and that common denominator is Izakov. Here we have a common denominator of between Halper and Steele, and that common denominator is Troubnikov. Now, when you put all these together, you can see that they're all coming out of the Clinton orbit. All of these people. And we know that Halper was working for the FBI. But Halper was involved, and we don't know when he went to work for the FBI, but we know that he was involved first in targeting Flynn going back to late 2014. Then he's involved from that point forward. Exactly when he officially started working for the FBI, I don't know. Was he working for the CIA? Was he working for someone else? Was he freelancing? That's what Durham is going to have to get to the bottom of. But you can clearly see that when you take all these people and you throw their names into a hat or put them up on the board, and then you put them on column A, and then you make column B, and column B is all the common denominators, the individuals which have links to various people, and you start drawing the lines connecting. Okay, we have Troubnikov. Who does he know? Who was he talking to in between 2015 and, say, 2019 or 2018? And you start drawing the lines. What you end up seeing is that every one of these people and these groups are flowing out of the narrative Trump-Russia and out of the Clinton campaign, which obviously had the narrative back in March. And of course, we know that Robbie Mook was the first one to go public after the Izakov story and start talking openly in public to the media openly. Now, they've been doing it behind the scenes for weeks and weeks, but then he comes out openly, starts talking about the Trump-Russia thing. And of course, the oddball, the odd man out in all of this, who is a key player, of course, is Mifsud. And you can probably throw Downer into this equation as well. And if you put their names up on the board and you start connecting dots, you can see that Downer also could very well have come out of the Clinton orbit. He certainly is affiliated with Halper. We know that Halper and Downer were together giving speeches over at the London Center. We know that they know each other, and they were likely coordinating on the frame-up on Papadopoulos. And Mifsud has to be in the mix because Halper was supposed to extract the information out of Papadopoulos that Mifsud gave him. But because Halper made Papadopoulos nervous and feel uneasy, he decided to clam up. This frustrated Halper, he gets up and he leaves, walks out, and then the next thing you know, Papadopoulos is being contacted by Downer. So clearly, Halper picked up the phone and called Downer and said, "Hey, man, we dropped some information on this kid that's in the Trump campaign, this Papadopoulos guy. I was supposed to extract the information out of him that we had misfed put on him, but he clammed up on me. So could you maybe have a meeting with him, get him talking about it, and see if he will drop the information on you, because he wouldn't do it for me." And you can see that this is clearly what happened. And we know that Halper and Downer are buddies. They both hang out at the London Center. They know Breedlove. They know all these guys are all the same in the same clique. Avinder Sambe, she's the one who sent Papadopoulos to Rome to meet Misfid, and she's in this same clique. So Arvinder Sambe, in the clique with Halper and Downer, likely Steele and all these other players, tell Papadopoulos to go to Rome. You got to meet this guy Misfid. He comes back from meeting Misfid. The next thing you know, Halper wants to know about the Russians and all this stuff. Papadopoulos clams up. Halper gets pissed off and leaves. The next thing you know, a week later, the phone's ringing. It's Downer's assistant, also a spy, wanting to set up a meeting. They have this meeting, and then Downer claims that Papadopoulos dropped this information on him about the Russians having dirt on Hillary, despite the fact that Papadopoulos says that he doesn't recall talking about Russia or emails with Downer. Now, the only issue was Downer, did he have a wire on Papadopoulos? Was he recording him with his phone? Is there any recording of the meeting between Downer and Papadopoulos? That's another issue that Durham will probably have to get to the bottom of. Now, we know that Durham did interview Downer, but we can assume he lied. That's what we can assume. So, as you can see, there are these individuals who I describe as common denominators. They're these individuals who are go-betweens or intermediaries, but all of these people, both the common denominators and the primaries in this deal, all flow out of the Clinton campaign, and this entire narrative began early in 2016, March of 2016, when Chalupa is telling the DNC and Hillary about Manafort and Yanukovych, connections to the Russians. That connects them to Trump. Oh, there's a Trump-Russia collusion going on. Then here comes the proto-dossiers. Then here comes Steele. Then here comes everything else after that. And it all flows out of the Rotten Reverend Clinton, the DNC, and that campaign. And I do believe that when Durham gets to the bottom of this, that's who he's going to find was the person who was behind all of this. As I've said many times, the Rotten Reverend Clinton planned, organized, directed, and controlled this entire operation. More evidence as we continue to connect the dots and do the math. Now, something we have going on here in the last week or two, we have Christopher Steele's company over in the UK, Orbis Intelligence, refuting an article that was posted in the UK about a week ago, of course, claiming that the dossier turned out to be garbage and bogus. So they come out and say, yeah, well, the Christopher Steele stuff is just garbage, bunch of bogus crap. And this gets under the skin of Christopher Steele and his partner. So then Christopher Steele comes out, Orbis, on behalf of Orbis I should say, comes out and goes after this article claiming that the dossier was proven to be garbage. And they're coming out and saying, no, the dossier wasn't all garbage, and most of it was true. So here's Christopher Steele, still, along with his partner over in the UK for Orbis Intelligence, still refusing to admit that the whole damn thing was garbage. And as we can see, Steele didn't even come up with most of this stuff. He was simply the middleman. So Steele and Orbis, in their defense against this article that was written saying the dossier is garbage, are claiming that there were 3 individuals who confirmed Steele's dossier material. And they named them. They named the 3 individuals who they claim confirmed that Steele's dossier was the real deal. And those 3 individuals are John Cipher, Chuck Rosenberg, and Anthony Ferrante. We know a lot about Ferrante. So who are these three individuals that Steele was using to say, yes, my dossier was good, mostly good. Screw this article, they're wrong. Well, John Cipher is a senior CIA intel official who wrote an article back in 2017 pushing the dossier, and he's a hardcore deep state anti-Trumper. We have Chuck Rosenberg. Who was he? He was Jimmy the Weasel Comey's chief of staff. And then we have Anthony Ferrante. He is an FBI agent who was planted into the White House to spy on Trump by Comey. He was hired after, so Comey gets fired, and Ferrante leaves about the same time that Comey is fired, because it was Comey who put him in there to do the spying. And then he goes to work for BuzzFeed, and BuzzFeed wants him to work for them to prove the dossier is true. Prior to that, prior to Comey planting him in the White House, he was one of those people who had been tasked over to the White House to the NSC, the National Security Council, where all the leakers and liars are, and the whistleblowers, or fake whistleblowers. He specialized, Ferrante is a specialist in cyber crime. No wonder they wanted him into the White House. He's probably planting bugs, probably stealing information out of the White House off hard drives and everything else, because they have devices in the FBI that can do that. You can stand 10 feet, 3 feet away from a computer hard drive and read the entire hard drive. So they probably, he was probably one of the main sources for how they were getting so much information out of the White House. And of course, we know that Ferrante, when he went to work for BuzzFeed, he was paid $4 million to try to prove that the dossier was true. And we know where this money was coming from. It was coming from this one character who was on Feinstein's committee, Daniel, whatever his name is. And then that money was also coming through Soros-associated groups. So these are the three people that Steele and Orbis are trying to claim back up that the dossier was true. So again, Christopher Steele's a lowball bottom feeder, and they really just need to arrest that guy and lock him up. He lied under oath. He lied to the FBI. He lied to Congress. He continues to be free and clear. I think that we need to extradite him back to the United States. He was a big part of the coup. A big part of the coup, and we need to get Christopher Steele over here and slap the leg chains on him and put his ass in solitary confinement until he decides to talk and tell the truth for once, because this guy hasn't told the truth from day one. Next question. Where is the Joseph Mifsud 302? We asked this question about a week ago, and we're asking it again. And why is that? Because the FBI interviewed Mifsud in February of 2017. He lied to them. How do we know that? Because Uncle Bob the Executioner told us that he lied to them. Why did they not arrest him? And why is there no 302 from their interaction and discussion or questioning of Mifsud, where he lied to them? Where is it? They say it doesn't exist. Everyone else the FBI interviews gets a 302, except for the rotten Reverend Clinton, apparently, and Mifsud. Because if they had that 302, they could show us where he lied. I mean, Mueller is saying that Mifsud lied to them. How does he know? Shouldn't there be a 302? Isn't that what they would rely on? Mueller said it when he was being interviewed, when he was there in Congress testifying. He said Mifsud lied to us. Well, how would he know that if there wasn't a 302? I think there is a 302 on Mifsud, and a lot more. That's another thing Mr. Durham needs to get to the bottom of. Now, we also had this story that Mifsud likely met with Comey in Australia. We know that they were both in Australia the same week. Comey and Mifsud are in Australia the same week. And what's Comey doing in Australia? Who else lives there? Downer. And what happens a week after Comey and Misfit are both in Australia? That's when Misfit meets with Papadopoulos and drops the narrative on him that the Russians have Hillary's emails. So Comey is in Australia, so is Mifsud, and Downer lives there about most of the time. As a diplomat, he spends quite a bit of time in the UK, but he's actually from Australia. So Comey goes over to Australia. He's there the same week that Misfit is there. It's kind of an unusual place for Misfit to be because he spends most of his time in Europe. But for some reason, Comey and Misfit are in Australia in the same week, the same place where Downer lives. Then the week after that, Misfit is telling Papadopoulos back in Europe about Russians having Hillary's emails. They need to take a look at Comey's notes. They need to take a look at his travel records. And they need to compare that to the travel records and any telephone calls that there may be between Comey and Misfit or anyone who may have been an intermediary. There are ways to check and see if these two would have crossed paths in Australia. I hope that Mr. Durham is looking at that. You got to wonder, has Comey been asked about this by anyone? Did Durham ask Downer about this? If he had any meetings with Comey or Misfit in Australia or anywhere else? And did the FBI ask Mifsud about this? I'm thinking not. Okay, before we get to Dumbass of the Week, just a real quick overview of what's happened in the last 24 hours regarding the Democratic Demo-Commie primary. And, of course, we know that Tom Steyer dropped out right after he found out that he came in third place. And so we can now say that Tom Steyer must be one of the stupidest billionaires on the planet. And we can say that because we know that he spent $252 million. $252 million. And he got one delegate. Tom Steyer got one more delegate than you and I. Just one. He got one more delegate than you and I. After spending $252 million in 1.5 years campaigning. And a lot of that time spent in South Carolina. $252 million, one delegate. That is a big loser. We've just learned that Mayor Pete the Cheat, Booty Fudge, we now know that he has bailed out. Yep, he never was going to get there. And my guess is he got talked out of that, and they're going to try to talk a lot of people into getting out so that they get a two-man race. Bernie and one other person. Whether that's Bloomberg or whether that's Biden, I think we'll know that after Super Tuesday, which is coming up tomorrow. I believe after Super Tuesday, Warren will likely drop out. Klobuchar will likely drop out. In fact, probably everybody will drop out except for Bernie, Bloomberg, and Biden. I think they'll be the only three standing after Super Tuesday. Now, at some point, the establishment is going to have to decide, are they going to go with Bloomberg or Biden? And they're going to have to make a decision pretty quick, and one of those two are going to have to drop out. Otherwise, they'll continue splitting the so-called centrist vote between them while Bernie just continues to rack up delegates. Bernie's going to be the delegate leader when they get to the convention, where they'll steal it from him. And he'll go, okay, thank you. And they'll cash him out, and he'll go on his merry way, and his supporters will go apeshit. That's what's going to happen. Now, Bloomberg, on the other hand, he has spent $465 million. $465 million. He does not have a single delegate to show for it. Of course, he's not been on any ballots. Now, obviously, he's on the ballots in a lot of these Super Tuesday states, but I don't think he's going to do that well. I mean, you know, it looks like, from what I'm seeing in the favorability ratings, he's only around 30%. Can you imagine spending $465 million and then getting blown out on Super Tuesday? It's very possible. Why? Because just like the Beatles said, money can't buy you love. Buy you a lot of things, but it can't buy you love. Congratulations to Melania Trump. Her home country is finally joining the rest of Eastern Europe and making that move toward populism. That's right, in Slovakia, Melania's home country, the populists in the middle of an election right now are winning big. These are right-wing populists who are winning big. So, yes, Trump isn't just winning in America with his populism, but Melania is winning in Slovakia with Trump populism, as is a lot of Eastern Europe. Well done. Now let's cover Dumbass of the Week. Okay. Not a very long list of people because I kind of screwed it up. But yes, typically on the Sunday videos where we vote for Dumbass of the Week. So Sue Sung is going to go with Eric Holder, Saturday Night Live, and Jim Acosta. Freddie Schaffer is going to go with the mainstream media. And of course, most of the people with the mainstream media, they're talking about the way they're covering the coronavirus, blaming it on Trump. And Freddie Schaffer is going to go with the mainstream media, the governor and the attorney general in California, as well as sanctuary cities and states. Cards is going to go with the Penguin for the reasons we discussed earlier. Peter James will go with the Penguin, the Young Turks, and the mainstream media. Jonathan Cassidy will go with Nadler, Biden, and Steyer. Lee will go with Sanders, Bloomberg, and Biden. Pick Sigma 4 will go with YouTube and Google. We talked about the platform. Apparently people are still having comments removed. I kind of think I'm immune to that in a lot of ways, so I'm surprised to see this happening because I am delisted with Google because I do not run advertising on my videos. So I should be delisted. They shouldn't even be looking at my channel unless someone's snitch and has turned us in. Brian Larkin will go with Piglowsi, the Ebola money over the Ebola money, and of course the mainstream media, along with Nadler over his continuing the Russia hoax. Linda Martin will go with Nadler and Biden. Susan Lowell will go with Rosenstein's sister for trying to scare people with the epidemic, and also she'll go with Pelosi. We have Jamie Anzavino going to go with the media. We have Ricky Ricardo going to go with himself for watching a Hollywood movie. That's okay, Ricky. We all do it from time to time. I prefer the older movies, but hey, every now and then, watch a movie. But watch it at home, and watch it for free if you can. AJ is going to go with Lundberg for volunteering to be part of the Clinton body count. Yeah, I've heard he's kind of backed off of that. I don't see that going so well, but it looks like that's pretty much our list for the week. It looks like the mainstream media nominated many times, but never winning. It looks like that they are going to get the most votes for first place. So it looks like the corporate media, and I believe most people are talking about the way they're pushing this coronavirus, calling it the Trump virus. It looks like mainstream media will be the dumbass of the week. It looks like we have the Penguin, Jerry Nadler, to take second place. And it looks like Biden, Burisma Joe Biden will take third place for this week's Dumbass of the Week. There you go. Mainstream media, the Penguin, Jerry Nadler, and Burisma Joe. There you go, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back tomorrow with more TowerGate. See ya. Bye.